Lydia's arrival was announced by a clear voice as the door swung open. Hearing her name uttered by Quinn, I froze, wondering who could be there. But the confirmation came swiftly. It was indeed my sister, Lydia. Quinn continued calling Lydia's name repeatedly, and as I shivered, I snapped back to reality. Realizing the gravity of the situation, I knew I had to capture it on video. Quietly, I recorded the evidence on my smartphone and discreetly retreated. After a while, they emerged from the bedroom only to turn pale at the sight of me. "That's right," I confirmed. "I've sent the video of you two to Gabriel. Anyway, let's discuss what to do next among the four of us." At those words, Lydia's face paled even further. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Just what it sounds like," I replied, holding up my smartphone. "I have the evidence." "What have you done?" My sister's frantic reaction was immediate, and then she lunged at me. "My name is Linny, a 45-year-old housewife with twin boys in the 6th grade. Twins run in our family, including myself and my twin sister Lydia. Despite being identical twins, our relationship was more rivalry than sisterhood. From childhood, I was always compared to Lydia, who was perceived as cute and affable while I remained shy and reserved. This dynamic fueled my deep admiration for Lydia, but she seemed indifferent to me, often manipulating situations to her advantage. Throughout our childhood, Lydia always took the lead while I was left with unwanted roles. Whether it was in games or school plays, her influence overshadowed me. Despite my efforts, Lydia's manipulation persisted, reaching a breaking point when she tried to dictate my choice of high school. Standing up to her for the first time, I chose my own path, leading to a physical altercation that revealed Lydia's true feelings towards me. Despite the turmoil, I persevered in my studies, eventually achieving my goals independently. As an adult, I found solace in my career and met my husband, Quinby. Our shared background brought us together, and when he asked me out, it felt like a dream come true. "I actually like you, Lenny. I'd be happy if you'd go out with me." Hearing those words filled me with incredible happiness. I had feelings for Quimby as well, but I had never found the courage to openly admit such feelings. Unlike my sister Lydia, who exuded charm effortlessly, I lacked experience in matters of love from my school days. To believe that Quimby reciprocated my feelings was almost surreal. "I'd be happy to, thank you," I replied, feeling overjoyed at the prospect of being in a relationship for the first time. Since we started dating, I devoted myself to making Quimby happy, preparing meals and lunch boxes for him. Quimby began visiting my apartment more frequently, and it felt like we were almost living together. "Linny, I'll cook dinner tonight," he'd say, but it wasn't just me catering to his needs. Quimby was equally cooperative with household chores, and doing tasks together felt enjoyable. It made me believe that we could make a great married couple. 3 years into our relationship, we decided to get married, a decision that filled me with immense joy. However, there was one concern nagging at me. "You're a twin, right?" "I'd like to meet your sister," Quimby brought it up casually. Over the 3 years we'd been together, I hadn't introduced him to Lydia. Since our fallout in middle school, a deep rift had existed between us. But if we were to get married, introducing them was inevitable. When I finally mustered the courage to call Lydia after a long time, she seemed taken aback by the news of my impending marriage. She was busy, as usual, but reluctantly agreed to meet Quimby. Lydia hadn't changed since our childhood, still as condescending as ever. It fell upon me to be the mature one and humble myself. We arranged to meet at a restaurant, but Lydia, true to form, arrived late, dressed ostentatiously for the occasion. Despite our parents' efforts to smooth things over, Lydia continued with her abrasive behavior, bombarding Quimby with rude remarks. By the end of the meal, I was exhausted, but Lydia's comments lingered. As we left the restaurant, Quimby remarked, "Lydia's quite the character, huh? The opposite of you, Lenny." I forced a smile in response, feeling a pang of insecurity. "Maybe you should take a leaf out of Lydia's book," he added. "She's always smiling, good at conversation, and cute. If I'd met her first." I was taken aback by Quimby's comment. I had confided in him about my discomfort with Lydia, so his words were deeply shocking. "Why don't you marry Lydia then? She even said you were handsome." I snapped back, feeling hurt by his jest. He quickly apologized, realizing his mistake. Sorry, it was just a joke. "I'm glad I met you, Lenny. I don't have any special feelings for Lydia." Still reeling from his words, I couldn't dismiss the unease gnawing at me. "Then you shouldn't say things that praise Lydia and put me down." "It was a joke," Quimby apologized, but the shock lingered. I wasn't going to call off our engagement over something like this, but I hoped he understood. Quimby continued, "But Lydia is a nice girl. It's not good to be jealous of your sister. Let's all get along as a family. Now we're adults, things are different than they were." Despite my reservations, I nodded along. I wanted Quimby to be on my side, not trying to bring me closer to Lydia. But arguing seemed too troublesome to pursue. A few days later, a message from Lydia sent shivers down my spine. "Isn't Quimby too good for you? Should I take him off your hands?" Her words were chilling. I immediately replied, "What are you talking about?" She called, laughing. "Just what I said. It's unbelievable someone as dull as you will get married before me." I couldn't bear the thought of Quimby being treated like an object to be passed around between us twins. I confronted Lydia, yelling back at her. I told Quimby about it, warning him to be careful around Lydia. But he seemed to take it lightly, brushing off my concerns. "It's nice to be liked that much." "Don't worry, Lydia's not serious," he said, laughing it off. But I couldn't shake off the feeling that Quimby had changed after meeting Lydia. Despite his reassurances, I couldn't fully trust him. As years went by, Lydia's spiteful messages continued, but I chose to ignore them. I prayed for a peaceful coexistence with her while leading a happy married life. When I learned that Lydia had gotten married, despite our strained relationship, I couldn't help but feel genuinely glad for her. When I heard that Lydia had found someone, it hit me hard. I realized how terrible I had been, marrying Quimby only after she had found happiness herself. Surprisingly, Lydia apologized through our parents, and we began communicating again. She had changed, becoming calmer, almost like the Lydia I once loved. I never thought we would laugh together again, so I was overjoyed. Lydia even introduced me to her husband, Gabriel, who seemed genuinely caring. As both Lydia and I were married, our relationship grew stronger, much to our parents' delight. I wanted to make up for the time we had lost. Then one day I fell ill at work and had to leave early. Upon returning home, I sensed something was off. Despite the house supposed to be empty, I heard voices coming from the bedroom. Recognizing Quimby's voice, I hesitated to confront him. The nature of his voice drained the color from my face. It was unmistakably intimate. Trembling, I decided to catch him in the act, recording with my smartphone. What I saw was even more shocking than I anticipated. Opening the door, I heard Quimby mention Lydia's name. Frozen in disbelief, I recorded the scene before quietly leaving. Sitting in shock, I forgot about my illness, staring blankly at my phone. Moments later, the bedroom door opened, revealing Quimby and Lydia. Quimby paled, questioning my presence. Lydia, defiant, declared her intentions to take everything. I remained calm, smiling at her threats. As the situation escalated, Lydia lunged at me, but Quimby intervened. Trying to diffuse the tension, he pleaded for forgiveness and attempted to protect Lydia. However, the consequences of her actions were clear. Realizing the severity of the situation, I couldn't cover for Lydia. Despite Quimby's pleas, I couldn't overlook her betrayal. It was a harsh reality, but Lydia had brought it upon herself, knowing the risks. I retorted that it was too harsh, but as usual, Quimby rushed to Lydia's defense, further infuriating me. I shot him a glare, expressing my concern for Lydia. Thinking Lydia is the only one who's going to lose her family and job is a huge mistake, I shouted. Quimby flinched at my outburst, breaking out in a cold sweat as if suddenly coming to his senses. Realizing the gravity of my words, I informed Quimby that I had also sent the video to the company's main email address, including his department and name. His expression turned to one of despair as Gabriel's call ended. I kicked them out and called Gabriel to explain. Sorry to disturb you at work, but it's about the video, right? Gabriel's gentle voice confirmed. I apologized, explaining that I had been asked to gather evidence due to suspicions about Lydia's behavior. Gabriel revealed that he had consulted me because he felt something was off with Lydia. Despite my shock, I managed to film calmly, ensuring evidence of Quimby's infidelity. Gabriel expressed gratitude for capturing the evidence, admitting that he had sensed something wrong with Lydia. He reassured me, saying it was shocking enough to discover an affair, let alone with one's own sister. We agreed to talk another time, and I hung up, tears flowing endlessly. For the sake of my sons and my own future, I knew I had to be strong. That evening, when Quimby came home, I questioned him about Lydia. His response, snapping back at me and blaming me for his predicament, only solidified my resolve. Crying over a man like him was a waste of time. There's nothing to be done. Do as you please. You understand the situation, right? If we divorce. I firmly stated that I would be taking the kids. Quimby's feeble attempt to use our sons as leverage was pathetic, and I didn't hesitate to call him out on it. Stop being ridiculous. Divorce is inevitable, I told him bluntly. It seemed he still didn't grasp the severity of his actions, especially considering the probable loss of his job due to his adultery during work hours. His cluelessness only made him appear more foolish to me. As Quimby pleaded with me to consider starting over and forgive his infidelity, I questioned him about Gabriel's concerns regarding Lydia's behavior over the past few months. His weak response confirmed my suspicions. It wasn't just a one-time affair. Dropping the subject, I informed my sons about Quimby's infidelity the next day. Despite their young age, they expressed their support for me without hesitation, which moved me to tears. We left to stay with my parents, who were shocked to hear about Lydia and Quimby's actions. My mother tearfully apologized for always making me endure Lydia's behavior and promised to keep their distance from her. From then on, I commuted to work from my parents' home. Quimby's incessant calls and messages pleading for forgiveness only served to annoy me further. His attempts to woo me back with declarations of love and fantasies of a happy family of 4 were laughable. I was almost fooled for a moment, but my son's laughter at his messages reminded me of their absurdity. Despite my reluctance, I eventually agreed to meet Quimby to sign the divorce papers at a cafe, following Gabriel's advice to keep the conversation calm in a public place. When Quimby and Lydia arrived, it was evident that Lydia had fallen out of favor with Gabriel, serving as a harsh reality check for her actions. As we sat down to sign the papers, both Quimby and Lydia hesitated, hoping to avoid the inevitable. But I stood my ground, reminding them of their betrayals and the consequences they faced. Eventually, they signed the papers, and I finalized the divorce with the help of a lawyer introduced by Gabriel. After our divorce was finalized, Quimby wasted no time proposing to Lydia, revealing his feelings for her from the start. Meanwhile, Lydia, who had genuinely loved Gabriel, was left abandoned and eventually lost her job too. When I asked Gabriel about it, he revealed that Lydia had been complaining about me to him for months, painting me as useless and extravagant. The realization that Lydia had gone to such lengths to set me up filled me with horror. It was a stark reminder of the lengths people would go to in order to manipulate and deceive others. I was taken aback when Gabriel apologized to me, admitting that he consulted Lenny out of concern for my safety. Never did I imagine that it would lead to such a drastic turn of events with Quimby. It's okay, it's all in the past now, I reassure him, though the weight of what transpired still lingered. We concluded our conversation, agreeing to stay in touch for updates on the divorce compensation and legal proceedings. As Gabriel explained, the burden of the substantial divorce compensation led Quimby and Lydia to marry and live together. Lydia, abandoned by her parents, had no choice but to reluctantly accept Quimby's proposal. It seemed she had no family left and felt compelled to marry him. However, according to the lawyer, Lydia couldn't accept her situation and eventually divorced Gabriel to marry Quimby. Despite my sympathy for the lawyer, who endured Lydia's abusive language during their interactions, I remained grateful for his unwavering support, especially with Gabriel by his side. Over the years, we continued to demand the divorce compensation and child support, and I relied on their assistance. 5 years passed, and while the wounds healed, the scars remained. Then, out of the blue, the lawyer contacted me, informing me that Lydia wanted to talk. Despite my reluctance, I reluctantly agreed to meet, accompanied by Gabriel for support. At the cave, Lydia and Quimby appeared solemn as they broached the topic. Lydia revealed that she was suffering from renal failure and needed a kidney transplant. Quimby blamed me and Quimby for her deteriorating health, but I stood my ground, refusing to take responsibility for their actions. When Lydia pleaded for a kidney transplant, I was taken aback by her audacity. Quimby argued that as twins, I had a duty to help her, but Gabriel intervened, highlighting the risks involved and questioning the fairness of their request. Their pleas fell on deaf ears, and I left the cafe, determined not to be manipulated any further. Despite their desperate attempts to guilt-trip me, I remained resolute in my decision. With Gabriel's support, I walked away, leaving them to face the consequences of their actions. While I couldn't forgive them, I hoped they would learn from their mistakes and find a way to move forward. As I continued to live happily with my family, I kept in touch with Gabriel, who had become a trusted confidant. While he harbored feelings for me, I wasn't ready to reciprocate them just yet. For now, I focused on my sons and their well-being, knowing that someday I would find the courage to pursue my own happiness once again.